1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. I've been dragging my knuckles in circles round his cave, staring at the writing on the wall. Thinking back when I was young and strong and brave and chasing women, yeah, I used to get them all. But lately I've been feeling like a fossil, and the ladies tell me I'm old news. Cause there's a new player on the scene, our times are getting lean. You know, I got the Cro-Magnon. Now in my day I was somewhat of a Neanderthal. I used to drag the girls by the hair, but I would lay down my loincloth for them to walk on, and if they needed a friend, I was there. But all this new cat cares about is procreation, and the ladies are just tools for him to use. And old-fashioned guys like me, now we're a dying breed. You know, I got the Cro-Magnon. Got advanced material culture, I guess that makes him more evolved. Oh, but before you say he's higher up the ladder, look at what I've accomplished and the problems I've solved. It was all for me to fight that wild saber-toothed cat. I built houses on a mammoth bone. I lit 100 hearths with fire from Siberia to France, and I carved implements and idols out of stone. But I've got a protruding supraorbital ridge, so he's the one the ladies choose. Now the evening sun is sinking and I'm facing extinction, I got the Cro-Magnon. He's got his advanced material culture, I guess that makes him more evolved. Well, but before you say he's higher up the ladder than me, look at what I've accomplished and the problems I've solved. Oh, if not for me, never would have had the tools to set a girl's heart aflame. And if not for me, he wouldn't even know the rules of the hunt or how to get his game. But I've got a protruding supraorbital ridge, so he's the one the ladies choose. Now the evening sun is sinking and I'm facing extinction, I got the Cro-Magnon. Yeah, the evening sun is sinking, I'm on the brink of extinction, and I got the Cro-Magnon. I'm John and this is Lee, and yes, we do perform as a duo regularly. A number of these shows, and we call ourselves Sultana, but for now we're John and Lee. And this show, oh, thank you also, by the way, to the Southbridge Cultural Council and to the Mass Cultural Council for supporting this program and other programs like this. And without them, we wouldn't be here. So this show is called Cro-Magnon Blues, History and Legends Through Song. And in this show we're going to look at some characters and events going back some 10,000 years through human history. And some of these characters and events are proven to be historical. Others are merely legendary. And still others are a combination of both. You know, history gives us an understanding of each other and ourselves. It gives us a sense of where we're coming from and where other people are coming from, and it's identity. But you know, we can get that sense of identity, of our identity, of other people's identity from myths and legends as well as from history. That's a tongue twister, myths and legends. And so it's, and a lot of legends have their origins in history. So when it comes to the goal of understanding each other, of building bridges, maybe whether something's actually has historical basis might be of secondary importance to the goal of like connecting between peoples. I think that's really the ultimate goal of studying history. But that's kind of a side point to this whole show. So going back to the earliest days of recorded history, after hunter-gatherer bands had settled in city-states along rivers like the Tigris and Euphrates, the people of those city-states would tell stories of heroes and gods and the flood, and they passed those stories on from generation to generation. And after many generations, a man named Sargon from the city of Akkad to the north rose to dominance over other men. That's Sargon right there. He kind of looks a little stony in the picture. Sargon rose to dominance over other men, and he united all those cities under his rule. That was the beginning of the Akkadian Empire. Sargon had a daughter named Enheduanna. You heard of Enheduanna?
No. Oh, here.
I think I dated her once.
Enheduanna. He appointed her high priestess of his empire. She was high priestess to the moon god and to the goddess of war and love. Enheduanna wrote poems and prayers to those gods and goddesses, and her name was inscribed along with those poems and prayers on tablets and official seals. And when that happened, Enheduanna became the first known author in history. In the meantime, the people continued to pass on those stories of the heroes and gods and the flood from generation to generation. And over the course of many more years, the people were conquered and reconquered, and empires rose and fell, and some people migrated to other lands, and others were brought as captives to this land, now called Babylonia. And they remembered those ancient stories. And some of those stories grew into other stories. Some of those stories have helped shape our world today, and some of those stories had authors we can name. That is, authors whose names we know, like we know the name Enheduanna. And in this song, you'll hear some of the words to one of the hymns Enheduanna wrote. It was the time of Nebuchadnezzar. I was a captive in his land of terrifying splendor and gardens in the sun. There I found Enheduanna, daughter of Sargon, high priestess of Nana, and the jewel of Babylon. She crossed the desert of Shinar from the ancient time and the morning star still shone on her face. I heard her voice, for what she said was echoed from the snow. I had to follow where she led me, yet unknown. She spoke in a Cro-Magnon rhythm that turned dark to light. She spoke in a Cro-Magnon rhythm that turned the day to night. She spoke in a Cro-Magnon rhythm, and I stay up till dawn, searching for the words that my love to the jewel of Babylon. There was a haze of lapis lazuli hanging over each dark hill. Shadows falling upon the city wall, down and from the deep. Soon the morning star was in the sky, and the moon began to move. And from high atop a ziggurat, she sang a hymn. She sang a hymn that turned dark to light. She sang a hymn that turned dark to night. She sang a hymn, I still know for the words that my love to the jewel of Babylon. Supplications rising from the altar to the queen of Kaplan above. Prayers for the favor of Ishtar, goddess of war, goddess of love. And I heard the words of prophets, kings, and kings. And I heard the words of Proverbs and Psalms. I heard the words Sargon the Great, the father of Enheduanna, was the founder of the first empire in history, or the first known empire in history, the Akkadian Empire. He was a historical figure. His reign has been dated to approximately 2300 BC. After his lifetime, Sargon was deified, and he became part of the legends of ancient Mesopotamia. For about 2,000 years after his reign, he was considered the model for Mesopotamian kings. According to an ancient legend, possibly authored by Sargon himself, his mother was a high priestess, and when he was born, she set him adrift in a basket on the Euphrates. And the basket, he was found and raised by a gardener for the king of Kish, which was a Sumerian city. That story probably sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very similar to the birth story of Moses. To this point, no proof has been found that Moses was a historical figure. In addition to the similarity between the two birth stories, his and Sargon's, Moses has also been compared with connected with the Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten, who founded a primitive form of monotheism. Others have associated Moses with Hammurabi, the Babylonian lawgiver. An early mention of Moses comes from a scoundrel named Manetho. Manetho was an Egyptian priest, an ancient Egyptian priest who lived in the 3rd century BC. And he wrote a now lost history of ancient Egypt. And his account of Moses was actually ancient Egyptian anti-Hebrew propaganda. And that account is now considered one of the roots of anti-Semitism throughout the centuries. So it's an interesting side note there. But Moses, Moses may have been a composite of historical figures like Sargon and Hammurabi and Akhenaten. But as with similar legendary figures, again, this might be the meaning of the character and the impact of the character and how, the identity it forms among different groups of people and, our whole culture, really. It might be more important than the question of whether or not there actually was a single character named Moses. But that is a fine picture of Moses. Walking many miles in the desert, footprints in the sand, leading all them people far away through the promised land, falling down the powers of his Lord up in the sky. I mean to tell you, Moses was a voodoo kind of guy. Oh, I say Moses, he was a voodoo kind of guy. Moses, he was a voodoo kind of guy. Sticks to snakes, falling plagues down on the land, all for freedom's sake. Frogs and gnats and locusts, and the death of the firstborn, sparing his own people with blood over every door. Oh, I say Moses, he was a good kind of guy. forward and backwards, parted the Red Sea, made the mountains skip like rams, the hills like baby sheep, bringing down the word of law on tablets made of stone. Told him once and he told him twice, you better let my people go. And I said, Moses, he was a voodoo kind of guy. Moses, he was a voodoo kind of guy. And Moses, he was a voodoo kind of guy. And Moses, he was a voodoo kind of guy. A sermon by a 6th century English monk, Gildas, is the earliest written clue as to the origin of the legend of King Arthur. But King Arthur isn't actually mentioned in the sermon. The sermon instead mentions a Roman British leader named Ambrosius Aurelianus. He led the British in resisting the Saxon invaders. And according to Gildas, Aurelianus won an important victory at the Battle of Badon. That may not be correct, because some historians have argued that the probable date of the Battle of Badon and the probable lifetime of Ambrosius Aurelianus don't quite line up. They're off by about 50 years. But nonetheless, it's considered important because the Battle of Badon is then associated with King Arthur in the later pseudo-histories. What might be even more important is that Gildas attributes Aurelianus' success against the Saxons to his having been a just and moral ruler, just and moral leader. And that's pretty much how Arthur is characterized in the legends. Now, later pseudo-histories drew on the Gildas sermon as a source. And it's possible that Moses and Arthur, I went backwards there, not Moses, we're on Arthur now. It's possible that Arthur and Ambrosius Aurelianus were the same person, and the name got changed over time. Ambrosius is similar sounding to Moses, that's how I did that. It's also possible that Arthur was a pagan mythological figure, and that he was credited in oral tradition with helping Ambrosius Aurelianus to win against the Saxons, okay? And then over time, he became seen as a legend himself, King Arthur. It's also possible that the Arthur legend has a different source altogether. The consensus among most modern historians is there was no King Arthur, no one person who was King Arthur. At most, he was a composite of both mythical and historical figures. The later pseudo-histories and literature and the bardic tradition gave rise to the legends of Camelot. And this next song is built around a poem about Elaine of Astolat by Tennyson. According to this story, Elaine falls in love with Lancelot and then dies of heartbreak when Lancelot doesn't fall in love with her in return. And as per her last request, her body is placed in a small barge with a lily and her last letter in hand, and that barge is then floated down the river to Camelot, where it's discovered by the folks living in Camelot. They discover the body, the barge, the letter, and the lily, everything. Now, according to the Tennyson telling of the story, Elaine sings a song before she dies. Okay, sounds like something would happen in a musical. Just for some unknown reason, somebody's about to die, and they just spontaneously break out into song. But I guess that's how Tennyson saw it. So Elaine sings a song before she dies, and then Tennyson includes the words of that song as a poem within a poem. And Lee has put that poem within a poem to music.
called The Song of Love and Death. High drama. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
The year is 1389. The setting is Southeast Europe. The once powerful Serbian Empire has been reduced to a number of small states, the largest of which, Moravian Serbia, is under the rule of Prince Lazar. To the east and south, the Ottoman Empire looms, looking to expand. In a last-ditch effort to stop the Ottoman expansion, Prince Lazar and his allies faced Sultan Murad I on an open plain that will later become known as the Field of Blackbirds. Years later, this battle will become legend through a cycle of epic poems. And this legend will be preserved for centuries in the monasteries on Fruška Gora mountain. The reverberations of this 1389 Battle of Kosovo will be among the sparks that starts the First World War, and will still be felt as recently as the 1990s in Sarajevo. From the hills of Fruška Gora, fabled home of heroes slain, come to offer their remembrance of the battle. For once the army of Prince Lazar faced a mighty foe, and 77,000 fell in Kosovo. From the Adriatic shores to Byzantine terrain, Stefan Dusan left and Marco Gori in the rain. But quarters of his son came on peril and its gates, allowed Turkish infidelity to cross the narrow streets. So from the sons of Nimri and heirs to a vast domain, on the threshold of an empire, a living domain. And so in every army clad prince's army brother, but the army of the Sultan, he make a final stand. The Sultan's archers raised their bows and arrows fell like rain. Prince Lazarus men with lances charged the soldiers soon slain. The Ottomans were falling back, and victory seemed near. Not a word to the prince, the saint Elijah did appear. And Elijah said to Prince Lazarus, where what will you attain? A kingdom in the heavens or upon the most low plain? And the prince said to Elijah, though my life I never lose, the kingdom in the heavens is the kingdom I will choose. But the battle may get fierce, the orphan kingdom more mundane. Though the prince's men fought Arthur's strength began to wane. And if their sun was hotter than a scimitar and shield, they fell before the Ottomans upon Kosovo field. Was sent to fall on Prince Lazarus' body fully slain. His nation to the Ottomans, his army to the crows, his spirit to the heavens, to the kingdom that he chose. From the hills of Sultana to the border it'll claim. They 500 years of tyranny, treachery, disdain. And the bodies of a million men will let it shine. And the bodies of a million more forever to be scarred. From the hills of Sultana and the battle-weary plain, of north the green fires, a 7-7 strain. Cause minds are growing and vanish, causing hearts to bleed and break. Bodies in mass graveyards when the hills pushed the gore, they were slain. He says our Prince Lazarus will once more take a plane. And in the name of Christendom and battle, dare retire. The United Earthly Kingdom with the one who goes in time. Before I say which battle once again, touch the the earth with fire rockets echo your refrain. As weapons grow more savage, the flowers that they yield. As voices cry for vengeance in the cross. So history has a way of becoming legend and finding its way into literature. But the same can happen in reverse. Literature can find its way into history in strange cases. Imagine, it's October 30th, 1938. Thousands of Americans are gathered around their radios to listen to the popular Chase and Sanborn Hour, hosted by Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. The musical guest for the night is operatic crooner Nelson Eddy. Now, according to the popular legend, the popular version of the legend, when the first musical interlude started and Nelson Eddy was about to start singing, a large number of listeners turned the dial and tuned into another station where they found themselves listening to a broadcast of a dance band live from the Hotel Park Plaza in New York. That broadcast was shortly interrupted by a news bulletin. Now that news bulletin didn't interrupt the Chase and Sanborn Hour. The people who were listening to the Chase and Sanborn Hour didn't hear the news bulletin. The people who listened to Nelson Eddy, they didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. If you were listening to Nelson Eddy, and you don't know what's going on, and they say by tomorrow we'll all be gone. The news broke through the program, that was airing on the radio. But you were listening to Nelson, so you don't know. The world is in crisis, doomsday is upon us, panic has descended on the land. You don't know what's going on, you only listen to sappy songs. Go around with your head buried in the sand. From far off in the distance, there were explosions in the sky, and there was nothing anyone could do but wonder why. Now the enemy has landed, and invasion has begun, and there was just a safe place to hide, and nowhere to run. The world is in crisis, doomsday is upon us, panic has descended on the land. You don't know what's going on, you only listen to sappy songs. Go around with your head buried in the sand. You didn't hear the breaking story, you didn't hear what's going down. You didn't hear the sirens, you didn't hear the sound of the insanity. You didn't hear the death racism, you didn't hear the soldiers cry, you didn't hear the shrieks of terror, you didn't hear the newsman cry. Oh, the humanity. Charlie McCarthy, then you don't know a thing. Being toyed with like a puppet on a string. And now you feel like a thump, but not being in the know, 'cause you've been listening to Nelson on a puppet show. The world is in crisis, doomsday is upon us, panic has descended on the land. What's going on? You won't listen to sappy songs, go running around with your head buried in the sand. If you were listening to Nelson, if you were listening to Nelson, if you were listening to Nelson, you don't know. If you were listening to Nelson, if you were listening to Nelson, if you were listening to Nelson, you don't know. If you were listening to Nelson, if you were listening to Nelson, you just don't know. If you were listening to Nelson, if you were listening to Nelson, you don't know. Gather round your children, your loved ones and your pals. Think about the good times and old wells. Joaquin Murrieta was a California bandit in the days of the gold rush. He robbed the Wells Fargo stagecoaches, and he became such a menace that the governor, can't talk today, he became such a menace that the governor put a $5,000 bounty on his head. Well, a posse decided to collect the bounty, and they spent over a year tracking Joaquin through the mountains and desert of Southern California. This one's kind of dark. They finally caught up with him in a canyon. There was a gunfight. They shot him dead. It's the old West, you know. But after they killed him, they cut off his head. They put it in a keg of whiskey to preserve it. They brought the head back to the governor. The governor was pleased. He'd rid his state of a dangerous bandit. The posse was pleased because they collected the $5,000 reward. You would think that the story would end there, right? But it doesn't. Because the head went on to a long and lucrative career as an attraction at the freak shows circuses, excuse me, as an attraction at the freak shows and circuses that used to travel the old Wild West. After many years on that circuit, they had retired to the Museum of History in San Francisco. It was put on display for the tourists to gawk at, a decaying symbol of the rapidly fading Wild West. And there it remained, until the great earthquake of April 1906, which leveled the city and destroyed the head.
Thank God.
Did you say thank God? Well, imagine how the victims of the earthquake felt. When you kill a guy, you got to make sure you bury the head too. It's just not good energy to leave that thing lying around.
Yeah.
Things sitting there giving you the evil eye. Ready? This silliness. This is an actual book. It's a legend. Counts. Came from Sonora, down south of the border, rode north to California to seek his fortune in a mine. And his faithful senorita, the ravishing Rosita, into the rugged desert heat. Along with him did ride. It was a time of the 49ers, the hustlers and miners, who didn't keep the kind of those they thought had eyes upon their wealth. And so one night Rosita found a lover badly beaten as a sign in them that leaving might be better for their health. So they tried their hand at farming to escape from those who took them. Still some angels were alarmed by the brown color of their skin. And when they lose Rosita's brother for a crime done by another, Joaquin swore he'd have their blood for the wrong they'd done to him. And as the earth begins to rumble and the city starts to crumble, some will run and some will stumble and be numbered with the dead. And as the world splits asunder with the crack of April thunder, oh, won't you wonder what is going on? Who the F is dead? So Joaquin became a bandit, and with his 6-gun had in hand, raising cattle and wreaking havoc, causing legends to be told. Through the hills of Calaveras he filled many heart with terror as he took what should have been his share of California gold. And we spread him an outlaw from the bay on down to Baja. We had a gang of desperados and no stagecoach was secure. But in each small Mexican village you were the hero, not a villain, or you just robbed those who would steal from them. Wrote laws to keep them poor. And as the earth begins to rumble and the city starts to crumble, some will run and some will stumble and be numbered with the dead. And as the world splits asunder with the crack of April thunder, oh, won't you wonder what is going on? And who the F is dead? Yeah! So Joaquin became renowned throughout the for his bed. And a posse was commissioned by the privileged politicians who won their land by killing Indians, to bring him in alive or dead. For a year the posse sought him, killing him handy when they caught him. They surrounded him and shot him, and then cut off his head and put it in a keg of whiskey, so the reward would not risk if anyone should play against him. And he wasn't really dead. Good gift his head was given to a museum in San Francisco, where it was for an exhibition, so the tourists could behold a relic from a wild west with savages by gold possessed, but a body never laid to rest. May well leave a restless soul. And as the earth begins to rumble and the city starts to crumble, some will run and some will stumble and be numb with the dead. And as the world splits asunder with the crack of April thunder, oh, won't you wonder what is going on in Juliet's head? Oh, won't you wonder what is going on in Juliet's head? Joaquin Murrieta was a real person. He really was a California bandit. Much of the legend comes from a dime store novel that was written about him. The same is true for the bandit queen, Belle Starr. Much of her legend comes from a dime store novel that was written by a fellow named Richard Fox. You heard of him? Richard Fox was also the editor of a magazine, a sensationalist tabloid magazine called the National Police Gazette. I hadn't heard of it, but I guess it is. It's even still around. So, National Police Gazette was apparently responsible for a lot of the Old West and true crime legends that were popular in the late 19th century and 20th century. And it was also it was very popular among men. Supposedly you could find it in barber shops and brothels and bar rooms and places like that. And it was also behind they sponsored the early prize fighting championships and the boxing championships. That's Fitzsimmons and Corbett there. Fitzsimmons knocking out Corbett. Which is interesting. I think Corbett was actually quite a bit bigger than Fitzsimmons. Fitzsimmons was not a real heavyweight, but he was strong like a heavyweight. Anyway, that's boxing. That's another issue entirely. Belle Starr, the real Belle Starr, her exploits weren't anywhere near as numerous or dramatic as what was recounted in the dime store novel. She really did ride for a time with the James Younger gang. She really did have a daughter named Pearl. And she really did have a son who ran afoul of the law. And some suspect that son might have been behind her death. That's not proven, that's just one allegation. They never solved the mystery of her murder. But that's one thing that's suspected. But her daughter, Pearl, went on to become a successful businesswoman. And she ran a brothel in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And then later in Bisbee, Arizona. 1, 2, 3. She was born Rosie Lee, but in time she would call herself Pearl. When she made it known she was a bandit queen's girl. Her mother once rode with the James Younger gang, the most wanted men in the land. Star was quick on the draw and stood with her maid.
Girl was raised in a world where wild seeds were sown. She still was a child when she had a child of her own. When her brother went to prison, she gave up the newborn so she could start walking the streets to make the money to hire the lawyer who would win his release. And a girl who called herself Pearl gave herself to the night
For
for the comfort of men who belong to the dark side of life.
From dimes to novels, and barrooms and brothels,
she carved out a place in the world.
she was born to star.
Everyone knew her as Pearl.
Now some say the life of a whore is one filled with shame. Pearl always held her head high.
She was proud of her name.
And when men who had fought, then having cried, longed for some light in the world, they crawled to a bar with the shining red star
and the arms of a girl named Pearl.
and a girl
Who called herself Pearl gave herself to the night
for the comfort of outlaws and liars and
losers in life.
from dance to novels and barrooms and brothels, she carved out a place
In the world,
She was born to star. Everyone knew her as
Pearl.
We're going to finish up by going back to the earliest days of human civilization. But before I go on to that spiel, I want to again thank the Southbridge Cultural Council and the Mass Cultural Council for making this show happen, for supporting this event. And again, thank you to the Jacob Edwards Library for hosting this show. So we're gonna come full circle now back to the earliest days of human civilization. There's an archaeological site, maybe you've heard of, in Turkey, called Göbekli Tepe. It translates into Potbelly Hill. This site is estimated to be about 10,000 years old. Okay. That puts it around 8,000 BC. That makes it thousands of years older than the Sumerian city-states, than the pyramids, even Stonehenge. It dates to a time when people were still nomadic hunter-gatherers before anyone had settled into permanent villages. It dates to the earliest stage in the development of agriculture, when man was only first learning to modify his environment to suit his own needs. The site consists of these huge pillars of stone, and these stones are carved into, they have elaborate carvings and they appear as predatory animals. Some others appear to be human figures with no heads. Okay. There's no way to know what these pillars represent or what the site was used for. Maybe it was an astronomical observatory, maybe it was a temple to the ancestors. I like that theory. But I mean, I don't know. No, there's no way to know. We do know it must have taken a good amount of coordination and cooperation to build the site, because these stones, these are megaliths. They weigh many tons. They would have had to have been moved a good distance too. So people had to work together. It's possible that the earliest farms and settlements arose to provide the food and shelter needed to sustain the workers at Göbekli Tepe and other sites like it. Göbekli Tepe was built at the end of an ice age. The world was warming, the ice was receding, and the waters were rising. Today the world is warming, the ice is receding, and the waters are rising again. Well, after thousands of years of human existence, cooperation among Stone Age hunter-gatherers at Göbekli Tepe might have taught man that he could modify his environment rather than adapt to it. And that might have been the beginning of civilization. Today, if we don't find a way to recapture that spirit of cooperation and relearn how to adapt to our environment rather than try to force it to submit to our will, that Stone Age discovery might turn out to have been the beginning of the end of civilization as well. Thank you again for coming out. This song is called Potbelly Hill. 1, 2, 3, 4. They sent me down some Potbelly Hill. It's gonna be a gathering. They'll get aurochs and gazelle for water share. So bring along your wild oats and any berries that you find. There's gonna be a feast tonight on this common ground. And it could be the end of the beginning, or maybe the beginning of the end. But it won't be long before the ice will thaw, my friend. They set me us on Potbelly Hill. There's gonna be a party tonight. A holy man is gonna lead us all. I'm doing right. Every band's gonna have a drummer. There's gonna be a thunder sound. We'll share a toast to our fathers on this common ground. And it could be the end of the beginning, or maybe the beginning of the end. But it won't be long before the ice will thaw, my friend. And when it does, all grudges will be set aside. Oh, grudges will be swept away in the tide. All our troubles will be washed away, 'cause every day will be a warmer day. So let's go back to Potbelly Hill and share stories of the past. How we lost our heads living a life that couldn't last. But our wild side had to be tamed before we could settle down. Stuff our guts and stake our claims on this common ground. That might have been the end of the beginning, or maybe the beginning of the end. Now it won't be long before the ice will thaw, my friend. That might have been the end of the beginning, or maybe the beginning of the end. Now it won't be long before the ice will thaw, my friend. Potbelly, Potbelly, Potbelly. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Did you write these songs? Did you write these songs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That was an amazing performance. Thank you very much, both Dee and John. This
Thank
was
you very
wonderful.
much.
And
Thank you
thanks
so
to the
much.
Cultural Council, as always, for supporting the library and for the continued encouragement that we get.
Thank you.